What's up, Space Monkeys? Welcome to Political Fight Club. I'm your host, Robert Durden, and tonight I'm going to be talking about legalizing all drugs. I'm also going to talk about Washington, D.C. They took a baby step forward and they legalized all hallucinogens. That is awesome news. And in an earlier show, we talked about Oregon as a state decriminalized, and they may have even legalized. I can't remember. I think it was just decriminalized all drugs as well, which is awesome. Now, I want to go a step further, and I want to also clarify the way that I feel, because on the show so far, I've obviously been pretty pro marijuana, but I want to clarify exactly what I feel on drug legalization. And it's similar to how I feel on, like sex work as well. As I'm across the board, legalize, tax, and regulate for the most part. I want to look at all of the Scandinavian countries and see how they do it. But generally, like, what I've seen is that most of the countries that function well don't have a drug war. They don't have any jail time for possession of drugs. What they do, instead of putting people in prison for drugs, is they legalize them, and what ends up happening when you legalize a drug is that its black market dies. Same thing happened with alcohol once the prohibition ended. Is you have cleaner stuff, which with alcohol, obviously you don't know where you're getting it from when you're just grabbing it from bootleggers. It could be made in Cletus's bathtub. But nowadays our alcohol is legal, so we obviously know where it's coming from. It's made in sanitary conditions, and it has to live up to a standard that the government enforces. So the same thing would happen if you legalized all drugs, and that's why I'm for it. I think most progressive countries, Amsterdam, the Netherlands, and Amsterdam too. That's in the Netherlands. Scandinavia, all of those countries have full legalization, and they have much less, rates of bloodborne infections, because when you use a needle and you're passing it around here in the States, a lot of people that are doing these are impoverished and whatnot, so a lot of times they're sharing needles. In other countries, there's like federal funding for addiction centers, so when you use something like heroin, you don't have to do it in an alley behind a dumpster someplace. You can go to an addiction center, and they give you clean heroin, and they help you detox if you want to. And there's people to, watch you to make sure you don't swallow your tongue if you're going through the DTs if you want to detox. But it really helps with disease rates. It helps with addiction rates. They all drop when you legalize, tax, and regulate all this stuff. So, and another thing, and part of the reason why it doesn't happen in America is that even with marijuana, is that if you were to legalize a lot of these drugs, the opioid epidemic would go away, and they're making tons of money in the pharmaceutical industry off of, opioids, painkillers. So, I mean, billions of dollars are to be lost if you just legalize something like marijuana, which would help so many people with chronic musculoskeletal pain, amongst other things. Even something like, appetite loss during chemotherapy, because you're so sick when you are going through chemo for cancer, you can't eat anything. Marijuana has been helped or shown to help with that. Epilepsy. There's a million things that are helped by marijuana that Big Pharma has a bunch of very expensive pills for. So that's why a lot of these things never get decriminalized or legalized, is because Big Pharma stands to lose a lot of money when they do. And also, we, as a country, we generally tend to, we don't treat our citizens very well. We don't give them a lot of rights, and we cause a lot of poverty. So a lot of these drugs end up getting used in very unhygienic situations. So what we need to do is just legalize it all, and what you will see is a drop in bloodborne illnesses. Addiction rates will go down, happiness will go up, and we won't have a lot of people getting tainted shit. So it'll be awesome, and not to mention the capitalist standpoint, which is just if you tax it, you're going to have a lot of money for infrastructure, education, or whatever. Just put it towards wherever you want to. People like drugs, they're going to pay for it, so just tax it. They don't care. And that brings me to my second point, which is let's do the same with sex work. A lot of other countries, they have bordellos, they have sex work that's legal. And again, when you don't have a black market, you don't have to have these poor women out on street corners or, subjected to enormous amounts of abuse and violence at the hands of people that they work for, like pimps, or whoever they answer to. Like, if you just legalize it, then they can work at an establishment that's legal, and you can regulate it in a way that they're be much safer, less likely to get STDs, because then you could have them tested regularly, which is what they do in other countries. A lot of times they get to pick their clients. Sometimes they test the clients, and that helps with so much. If you're a right winger, all those icky STDs from premarital sex. Yeah, just legalize and regulate sex work as well. You get rid of a lot of those icky STDs you guys are so worried about. And again, I think they did this in, and don't quote me, I think it was Australia. And when it happened, the divorce rate dropped. And I don't know if that's been studied a lot, but it dropped like 10% immediately as soon as you do something like this. So it would be much safer for the women, because again, you're taking away the black market by legalizing it. And then, the divorce rate drops because people can go and see their mistress or mister. I don't want this to be a gender neutral or sex neutral thing. I want there to be male prostitution and female prostitution legalized. Less STDs, because you'd have testing funded by the government, and you'd have establishments that are actually businesses that could make sure that they keep the people that work there safe. So it works well in other countries. Why not just legalize it across the board? And what drives me crazy about America is that we'd rather maintain this facade that we're great when we have people doing crack in studio apartments and heroin with needles that have been had to pass around. But we'll demonize other countries that most Americans know nothing about, that have this stuff figured out, like Scandinavia and other European countries. So let's do what they do. Keep fighting the good fight, guys. I'll see you later.